My name is Mike Thompson, and I work in a bustling office in downtown Chicago. Each day blends into the next, with deadlines pressing down on me like heavy weights. I sit at my desk, staring at a long list of tasks that never seems to get shorter. I feel overwhelmed and tired. My mind races, jumping from one thought to another, making it hard to focus. Just last week, I missed an important deadline, causing my boss to look at me with disappointed eyes. I am tired of living like this, feeling like I am chasing shadows. Every morning, I wake up early, but instead of feeling ready, I often feel lost. I keep thinking about my endless to-do list and the countless distractions around me. My coworkers chatter, phones ring, and emails buzz. It creates a noisy environment that pulls me away from my work. As I sit in the crowded break room, I often wonder if it's possible to change my way of working. Can I really shift from feeling scattered to becoming focused and productive? Lately, I've watched colleagues thrive despite the same distractions that weigh me down. I notice how they approach their tasks calmly and efficiently. My heart aches with envy as I realize I am stuck in a cycle of chaos and procrastination. There's a flicker of hope in my mind, whispering that maybe I, too, can make a change. I dream of being more organized, completing my work on time, and feeling proud of what I accomplish each day. But to reach that dream, I know I must confront my habits and figure out a better way to work. I want to become someone who thrives in focus, bringing clarity to my busy days. The journey ahead seems daunting, yet a small spark inside encourages me to take the first step towards transformation. As I sat at my desk the next day, ready to dive into my work, I felt a wave of anxiety wash over me. I had decided to try a deep work strategy that I read about online. It promised to help me focus and get my tasks done without distractions. However, the moment I opened my laptop, my old habits came rushing back. The buzzing of my phone, the pull of social media, and even the urge to check my emails were strong like a magnet. I set a timer for 25 minutes, determined to work without interruption. But just 5 minutes in, I glanced at my phone and lost myself in scrolling through notifications. When the timer went off, I realized I had hardly achieved anything. Frustration bubbled up inside me. Why was this so hard? I felt like I was fighting a battle against my own mind. Just when I thought I could focus, my thoughts drifted elsewhere. I started to doubt my ability to change at all. Was I too scattered to become productive? Maybe I was meant to squander my potential. The next few days were a mix of attempts and failures. I tried to work in a quiet corner of the office, but my coworkers often interrupted me, asking questions or chatting excitedly. I grew more irritated and worn out. Each evening, I left work feeling defeated. It felt like climbing a steep hill, only to slide back down after every step forward. My vision of being a more productive person seemed to fade away as doubt filled my mind. What if these strategies did not work for me? One afternoon, sitting in the break room, I opened up to my friend Sarah, who had always been good at getting things done. She listened patiently as I poured out my frustrations. I told her about my failed attempts to focus and the wave of self-doubt that kept crashing over me. Sarah nodded, acknowledging my struggles. Then she shared something she found useful. "Have you heard of the book Deep Work by Cal Newport?" she asked. She explained how it taught her to embrace focus and block out distractions for big tasks. At first, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe this book could be what I needed. But doubt crept back in. What if I couldn't grasp its ideas, just like the other strategies? Feeling a mix of excitement and fear, I decided to borrow the book from Sarah. Diving into the pages, I began to understand why my mind struggled so much with focus. It helped me see how our world, full of distractions, makes it hard to concentrate. The words sparked a realization: it was not just about trying harder, it was about crafting an environment for my mind to thrive. The next morning, with renewed determination, I set a goal to make small changes based on what I read. I moved my phone to a different room and promised myself to dedicate a few deep work sessions each day. Something inside me stirred. I might not have conquered my focus completely yet, but I was stirring up a will to fight this battle. Those moments of doubt were still there, but now, I had a flicker of guidance to help me push forward. As the sun spilled through my office window on a new day, I felt a rush of determination. I was ready to apply the strategies I had discovered in Cal Newport's book. I meticulously planned my work session to include a distraction-free environment for those few hours. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that progress could be slow, but every step mattered. Today, I set my timer for 30 minutes instead of 25, feeling inspired by the promise of deep work. I focused on a project that had been hanging over my head for too long. With the phone in another room and music turned off, the quiet felt refreshing. At first, my mind wavered, and I was tempted to peek at my email. But as I glanced at the timer, a wave of determination washed over me. This time, I made a choice to resist. After several minutes, a small victory rang through my mind. I had managed to hold my focus without distractions. The words on the page turned into a solid block of ideas instead of a jumbled mess. I began to enjoy the thrill of clarity and productivity. My confidence grew as I moved closer to completing the task I had struggled with for weeks. Just as I finished one small part of my project, something happened that knocked the wind out of my sails. An urgent email popped up from my boss. She requested an immediate update on a report. My heart raced, and dread filled my chest. It felt like the old chaos was coming for me again. All my progress threatened to crumble in a single moment, forcing me into that familiar whirlwind of pressure. I experienced a knee-jerk reaction, wanting to rush and answer her email, right away. That feeling of panic clawed its way back inside me, urging me to abandon the focus I had just gained. But then I remembered what I had read about controlling emotions in stressful situations. I took a breath, allowing myself a moment to think clearly. Instead of responding immediately, I decided to put together the information I needed before replying. This was new for me. I was learning to respond rather than react. With each passing minute, my pulse slowed, and I recalled the idea of deep work. Doing something well requires effort and attention. I pulled myself together and drafted a thoughtful response for my boss, updating her on my progress and detailing the remaining steps to complete the report. I felt empowered as I hit send, a rush of pride surging through me. In that moment, I valued calm over chaos. However, as the day went on, I found it increasingly tough to stay focused. It was like riding a wave. I had a taste of success, but the tide still pulled me back to the shore of distraction. By the end of the day, I was drained. Yes, I had achieved small wins, but my confidence seemed fragile. I realized I still had so much to work on. Staying focused throughout a workday felt like a battle, a mountain I was only starting to climb. I knew I had glimpsed progress amid my struggles, but the road ahead seemed long. The doubt still lingered, but I also held on to small victories, building a foundation of confidence to keep pursuing my transformation. Maybe, just maybe, I could become a person who embraces focus and productivity. Each attempt I made traced the path ahead, encouraging me to push forward whenever I stumbled. Just when I began to feel like I was making progress, reality hit me hard. An unexpected challenge loomed over my head like a storm cloud. Our big annual report was due at the end of the week. This report was crucial not just for my team, but for the entire company. It felt like my chance to prove that I could handle responsibility and focus under pressure. The morning I learned about this looming deadline, I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. There was so much work to do, yet so little time left. My mind raced as thoughts spiraled. I realized I was rewriting my definition of success. Instead of embracing the deep work lessons I had learned, I found myself paralyzed by fear. Would I really be able to pull this off? The old doubts crept back in, whispering that I would fail, that my newly found focus was just a mirage. As the anxiety climbed, my old self resurfaced like a shadow. I started to imagine worst-case scenarios. My boss would be disappointed, my colleagues would think I was unreliable, and everyone would see me for who I really feared I was, a procrastinator. The confidence I had built up in the past few weeks crumbled under the weight of self-doubt. I struggled to hold on to the productive strategies I'd learned. Instead, I felt trapped in an emotional whirlwind, overwhelmed by the pressure surrounding me. Determined to face this challenge, I set aside time to work on the report. I planned it out carefully, but as I began, my mind betrayed me. Thoughts of previous failures raced through my head. Each time I tried to focus, I found myself staring at the blank page. Minutes turned into hours, and I could barely write a single sentence. It felt like I was standing in quicksand, sinking deeper with every attempt. Frustration and panic bubbled to the surface. I slammed my hands on my desk, sending my pen rolling across the room. "What is wrong with me?" I shouted to the empty office. I could almost hear my inner critic laughing. "You thought you had changed? You can't even write one page," it taunted, dragging me down. The loud insistence of my self-doubt drowned out the spark of hope I had nurtured so carefully. In that moment of despair, I felt tempted to give up. The pressure was too overwhelming. I wanted desperately to turn away from the heavy expectations set around me and hide. But somewhere inside, a small voice told me that I had overcome obstacles before. I remembered the small victories, the moments I had felt proud of myself just days earlier. What if I took those lessons and applied them now, even in this moment of crisis? Deep down, I knew I had to keep trying. Whether I failed or succeeded this time didn't define me. Yet as I sat at my desk, tears of frustration welling in my eyes, I wrestled with one main question: would I surrender to my fears, or could I summon the courage to face them and move forward? This thought lingered on the edge of my consciousness as I stood at the crossroads, grappling with the fight against my own obstacles and the desire to rise above them. The weight of the report felt like a stone pressing down on my chest. I sat at my desk, staring blankly at my screen, deeply frustrated and exhausted. The clock ticked slowly as I thought about how little progress I had made. I felt lost, teetering at the edge of giving up. My hands trembled as I ran them through my hair, my heart racing with doubt. Memories of past failures invaded my thoughts, reminding me of moments when I had let myself down. Maybe all this talk about deep work and productivity was just a dream for someone else. Perhaps I was not cut out for this at all. With tears pricking at the corners of my eyes, I grappled with the thought of abandoning my journey toward personal growth. What's the point? I whispered to myself. Nothing will ever change. I was teetering on the brink of surrender. I wanted to throw away my plans, close the book, and let everything go. Every lesson I had learned suddenly felt useless. Just as despair settled in, my phone buzzed beside me. It was Sarah, my friend, and the one who had recommended the book to me. I picked it up, not sure why I even bothered. As I read her message, a ray of light broke through the thick clouds of my frustration. She asked if I wanted to grab coffee later. Maybe the idea of a break from my thoughts provided a glimpse of relief. Though doubtful, I agreed to meet her. Sitting across from her in a cozy cafe, I felt the heaviness in my chest drain a little. As we sipped our drinks, I confided in Sarah about my struggles with the report. I shared how hopeless I felt, like I was letting everyone down. To my surprise, she listened with genuine understanding, nodding as I spilled my frustrations. Then she told me a story about a time when she felt overwhelmed with her work. "I was in a similar place once, Mike," she said softly. "I felt like nothing I did was good enough. But then I remembered something important. Growth doesn't happen in a straight line. We learn by hitting walls sometimes. It's okay to feel scared or uncertain. The most important step is to keep trying, even when it feels impossible." As she spoke, something stirred within me. I realized that it was okay to struggle. That wasn't a sign of failure but of progress. I remembered the small victories I had achieved, the moments when I had pushed through my fears. Those accomplishments were stepping stones, not the end of my journey. Maybe I need to be kinder to myself, I thought, acknowledging that setbacks are part of learning. I took a deep breath, feeling a shift happen inside of me. The idea of mental resilience blossomed in my mind. It became clear that stumbling didn't mean I was weak, it meant I was human. I didn't have to abandon my journey just because it felt tough. I had a choice to dig deeper and find strength in my struggles. By the time I returned to my office, I felt lighter. I understood that facing challenges did not define me, it was how I responded that mattered. Instead of caving into despair, I could rise, ready to tackle my work with determination once again. My heart was still racing, but this time, it pulsed with renewed hope. I was ready to embrace my growth journey, doubts and all. With yesterday's conversation still echoing in my mind, I sat down at my desk determined to push forward. I felt a new kind of energy coursing through me, a blend of hope and resolve. I reminded myself that growth is forged in the fires of challenge, and this was my chance to embrace that. No more hiding or giving in to doubts, I was ready to take action. I knew I had a lot to do, and I had to stay focused. Taking a deep breath, I pulled out my notebook filled with notes from Cal Newport's book. I split my work into smaller tasks, creating a clear plan to tackle the big report piece by piece. My first step was just over a page on the current project status. I set my timer for 50 minutes and silenced my phone, refusing to let distractions pull me away. The seconds ticked away, and though the stillness of my desk was welcoming, my mind tried to trick me again. In the first few minutes, feelings of anxiety crept in as thoughts nagged at me about missing details or getting it wrong. A wave of overwhelming fear wanted to drown my focus. But this time, instead of panicking, I remembered Sarah's piece of advice, the importance of pushing through the fear. Instead of backing down, I forced myself to keep typing, letting my fingers flow over the keyboard as ideas surfaced. About 15 minutes in, my focus wavered again, and I found myself doubting my own thoughts. What if my writing is terrible? I wondered, my heart racing. But instead of giving in to that fear, I voiced it aloud. It doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be done. Leaning into that mantra, I kept going. I wrote without worrying about making every word flawless. As the time flew by, I finished the first section, and pride bubbled up inside me. I allowed myself a brief moment to celebrate this accomplishment before diving into the next part. Each segment of the report came together as I continued working, paragraph by paragraph, feeling more in control of my thoughts. But halfway through my time block, I hit a wall. I tried to formulate a conclusion about our findings, but nothing made sense. Frustration clawed at my patience, and I could feel myself slipping again. Instead of letting the frustration pull me under, I took another deep breath and reminisced on my earlier break with Sarah. I recalled how she spoke about resilience. Instead of pushing myself harder, I decided to step back for a few moments. I took a short walk around the office, letting my mind refresh. I allowed space for ideas to float around instead of shackling myself to the keyboard. When I returned, I felt a renewed spirit. I approached the conclusion with a fresh perspective, seeing the connections that had eluded me before. It required patience and focus to pull together my thoughts, but I managed to compose a strong statement that wrapped up the report neatly. By the end of the day, I reviewed everything I had written, and my heart raced, not from fear but from determination. I had poured my energy into the report, overcoming my doubts and fears along the way. With the finished work in front of me, I felt a surge of confidence. Yes, it hadn't been easy, but I didn't back down. I not only tackled the report but embraced every moment of uncertainty, transforming it into resilience. Maybe, just maybe, I was beginning to understand the true meaning of personal growth, one deep focus session at a time. As I submitted the report to my boss, a wave of relief washed over me. I felt my shoulders relax and the tightness in my chest dissipate. I had done it, I had faced my fears, pushed through self-doubt, and created something I was proud of. But deep down, I understood that this moment was about more than just the completion of the report. It was the culmination of my journey toward becoming more resilient and focused. For the first time in a long while, I caught myself smiling without realizing it. I leaned back in my chair, letting the warmth of accomplishment sink in. I reflected on the struggle that led to this moment. I thought about how I had felt trapped in a cycle of worry and frustration, and how those feelings had almost made me give up. Instead of allowing my challenges to defeat me, I had learned to confront them head-on. I took a moment to acknowledge my progress. I remembered the breaking point when everything felt dark, when giving up seemed like the only option. Yet, reaching for the conversation with Sarah reminded me of my strength. This experience became not just about helping me complete a report, but about reshaping my mindset in everyday challenges. I realized that I had tapped into a mental toughness I didn't know I possessed. Looking back, I remembered how overwhelming everything had once felt, the anxiety of deadlines, the chaos of distractions, and the constant pressure of self-expectations. Yet, I had gradually begun to control my environment and my responses. Each time I resisted the urge to give in, I built a brick in the wall of my resilience. I learned that my self-worth isn't dictated by perfection but by effort and adaptability in facing challenges. I spent some time envisioning my future work habits. I wanted to continue practicing deep work, but I also understood that it wasn't always going to be smooth sailing. The pressures would return, new challenges would arise, and my mind may still falter under stress. But now I had developed skills to manage that pressure. My mindset felt different, like my path was clearer. I also realized the value of support. Sarah had encouraged me during a moment of darkness, showing me that connection and conversation mattered. I promised myself that I would not only embrace my growth but be there for others in their struggles as well. There was incredible strength in community and shared experiences. Reflecting on my experience, I felt grateful for the lessons learned. Each obstacle had shown me empathy towards myself and others. I accepted that setbacks would likely come, but instead of fearing them, I could now welcome them as opportunities to learn and grow further. As I prepared to leave the office that day, I took one last glance at my completed report. It was more than just a piece of writing, it symbolized the difficult yet rewarding journey I had taken to reach this point. I stepped out into the warm afternoon sun, ready to embrace whatever came next with a new lens of understanding. I wouldn't forget this moment, nor the power of perseverance that had carried me through. In the weeks that followed, I noticed a profound shift not just in myself, but in my approach to daily life. Each morning, I woke up feeling a renewed sense of purpose. I began to rise earlier, energized to take on the day rather than to dread it. Creating a morning routine became essential. It included a few moments of mindfulness to center myself and set clear intentions before diving into work. The anxiety that once clouded my mornings gradually melted away. At work, I started implementing deep work sessions more consistently. Instead of letting distractions overwhelm me, I carved out specific intervals each day solely dedicated to concentration. I found a quiet corner in our office where I could work uninterrupted. Whenever the urge to check my phone or scroll through social media arose, I reminded myself of my goals. The fears that once paralyzed me felt like mere whispers in the background, easily ignored by my newfound resolve. My productivity soared. Tasks that had previously taken hours to complete now seemed manageable. I quickly learned to break them down into smaller chunks, making my workload feel lighter and more achievable. Whenever stress crept in, I paused to breathe and practice the techniques I had become accustomed to. Each deep breath helped ground me. I realized these moments of mindfulness were crucial in maintaining my clear mental state, and they seamlessly integrated into my daily routine. The people around me began to notice the change, too. My colleagues complimented my ability to remain composed during stressful meetings. I had transformed from the frazzled employee overwhelmed by emails and deadlines into someone who tackled challenges head-on. While some were curious about my transformation, others approached me for advice. I gladly shared my insights with several coworkers. One afternoon, Emma, a fellow team member, confided in me about her struggles with focus and stress over looming deadlines. Instead of merely offering suggestions, I shared my own challenges and the steps I had taken to overcome them. I emphasized the importance of acknowledging setbacks and learning from them. Our conversation illuminated my growth even further. I was now not just a student but also a mentor. As the weeks drew on, I continued to apply the lessons I learned outside of work. Whenever personal challenges arose, be it a tricky conversation I needed to navigate or a creative project that felt overwhelming, I leaned into my resilient mindset. I faced each situation with a calm heart and a strategic plan, willingly welcoming uncertainties that arose. With every small victory, my confidence solidified. This shift began to influence my approach to life outside of work. Finding long-term goals became invigorating as I embraced more ambitious projects. For instance, I signed up for a local running class, something I had procrastinated on for years due to insecurities about my physical fitness. During the first session, surrounded by other beginners, my doubts resurfaced, but I reminded myself that every expert began as a novice. Choosing to push past that internal voice of hesitation, I discovered enjoyment in the activity itself, and the participants soon turned into supportive allies in my fitness journey. Small victories reinforced my understanding of resilience and focus. I came to view challenges as stepping stones for growth rather than obstacles. Stress morphed from a looming shadow into a manageable part of life. Others around me consistently commented on my transformation, often expressing admiration for my positive outlook and fresh energy. My journey was becoming increasingly clear. It wasn't solely about overcoming challenges, but about evolving into the person I aspired to be. I recognized that feeling fear or doubt didn't signify weakness. Instead, the true strength lay in my ability to face them and move forward boldly, embracing every step of the journey ahead. As I settled into my routine in the days that followed, I felt a wave of calm confidence washing over me. The intense pressure of the recent report had shifted. Instead of feeling weighed down by self-doubt and the chaos of daily tasks, I found myself embracing each new day as an opportunity. I had learned to appreciate the little victories, no matter how small they seemed. Each one led me to discover layers of strength I never knew I possessed. Walking into the office in the morning felt different now. It wasn't just a place of work, it was a space of growth. As I passed my colleagues, we shared smiles and encouraging conversations, reflecting how much the atmosphere had changed. I could sense a sense of camaraderie and support. Others often came to me for advice about projects and goals. I was happy to share my journey and the practices I had picked up. I understood now that together, we could lift each other up and succeed collectively. I approached my tasks with a fresh perspective. Every time I tackled something challenging, I recognized it for what it was, a chance to grow rather than a burden. I looked back at the time I had felt overwhelmed by deadlines and chaos. It felt like a distant memory. I was no longer that frazzled employee attempting to meet expectations with clenched fists. I had learned to put growth first and understand that failure could coexist with progress. It became clear to me that setbacks were not signs of weakness, but rather lessons shaping my path. In moments of pressure, I found myself leaning into my mental strategies. I'd take a pause to breathe deeply, reminding myself that feeling stress doesn't mean I can't handle it. I carried this newfound perspective with me in all aspects of my life. During social gatherings, when conversations could feel overwhelming, I practiced mindful listening and focused on enjoying the moment instead of worrying or second-guessing myself. Reflecting on my seasoned journey, I felt profoundly grateful. Every piece of advice I had received and every struggle I had faced shaped me into someone stronger. I appreciated those moments of self-doubt too. They taught me resilience. I realized that every challenge invited me to push my boundaries and discover more about myself. The lessons were not just about practical tools for work, they became life lessons for every area of my existence. As I glanced forward, hopeful anticipation bubbled within me. I knew that further challenges lay ahead, whether in my career or personal life. But unlike in the past, I felt ready to face what came my way. With each trial, I had matured, and every experience boosted my confidence. The perspective I had gained empowered me to welcome discomfort and uncertainty, knowing I would emerge even stronger on the other side. In sharing one final thought about my journey, I realized something powerful: mental resilience is a muscle that grows with use. The more we choose to embrace our challenges and push through discomfort, the stronger we become. It is normal to falter or feel afraid. What determines our journey is how we choose to respond. With every challenge, I'm ready not only to stand tall but also to support others on their paths. As I prepare for whatever awaits me next, I carry with me the belief that growth is a continuous journey filled with endless possibilities.